So, are you constantly struggling to find any deep sky objects? Or you don't even know where in the night sky you're pointing at? Well, this video is for you. You may think that the reason why you can't seem to find any galaxies or nebulae or any other deep sky object is because you haven't understood completely about constellations. But even if you can read constellation by just looking at the night sky, look at the stars, without this missing piece of the puzzle, you still struggle. Now you may think that you need to upgrade to a computerized go-to mount. While yes, this solves the issue of struggling to find deep sky object, but just hear me out, right? Especially if you're on a limited budget, well, I have an alternative solution for you. So a lot of you doing astronomy, well, myself included, we use a long focal length telescope. Anything that's like over 400 millimeters focal length. And the longer the focal length is, the harder it actually is to find any deep sky object. Because it's like trying to look at the sky through a drinking straw. And through a drinking straw, you only see a tiny piece. So you will have no idea where actually you're pointing at. And in daylight, this is easier because you've got like ground reference and stuff. But at night, you don't have any ground reference. So you can't actually tell how much, let's say, like the telescope is off from your desired object. And plus, deep sky objects are far dimmer than you think. And at short focal length, let's say using a wide angle lens of like 18 millimeters, the field of view is wide. So you have a much higher chance of even accidentally capture your targets, the object. But as soon as, let's say, you hit even like 200 millimeters or beyond, you're gonna have no chance of accidentally capturing the object. Because the longer the focal length is, the narrower the field of view is. So at long focal length, even if you're off by, let's say, 1 degree, then the object won't be in the field of view at all. So this is the missing piece of the puzzle I've been talking about. This black accessory here. This is called a Finderscope. So when you've attached a Finderscope onto your telescope, pointing objects, finding objects becomes so much easier. Because with the aid of a Finderscope, you're now able to point accurately before taking a test shot. So why does this work? So a Finderscope, it projects a beam of red light that actually tells you where your telescope is actually pointing at right now. And this is an absolutely useful reference point. Because, well, I'm surprised that only a few people talk about this. Is that if you're using a zoom lens or a telescope, which is 200 millimeters or more the focal length, and if you're not using any go-to, then you need a Finderscope to help you find objects. Otherwise, without one, you're just blindly guessing at the sky through a tiny tube. So, which finder scope should you buy? Well, I have two recommendations depending on your setup. So if you're using a zoom lens with a DSLR or mirrorless camera, I will recommend the red dot finder here. And like a red dot finder with a cold shoe adapter, whatever it's called. It's like a adapter that helps you attach anything to a standard DSLR or mirrorless camera. So it attach to a camera like this, so that it's kind of like attaching a flash to your camera. So you attach and you turn on the finder scope, the red dot finder, and you can easily line up the stars using when you're photographing using a camera lens. If you're using a telescope though, like this, I would recommend this finder scope. This is called the Terrad finder scope. Well, for both of these two models, I will leave a link in the description. So for telescope users, a Terrad finder scope is better. First, it projects a red glowing circle onto here, this glass, and this will be perfect for hopping between the stars to find galaxies or nebulae. And meanwhile, the problem with a red dot finder with a telescope is a lot of telescope doesn't have like a compatible slot for this. So that's why Terrad is a better choice, because you simply just need to attach the Terrad finder scope using a tack tape. So you just need a tack tape to stick this finder scope onto your telescope and you're good to go. And you don't need to bother about drilling holes and brackets or whatever like complex DIY stuff. Now, once you have attached the finder scope onto the telescope, you need to do a finder scope calibration. Now, please don't skip this step. You want the glowing circle or the red dot of your finder scope to accurately reflect what your telescope is pointing at. So this is super important to do calibration. So how to do calibration then? Now I recommend doing this during the daytime. So during the daytime, you point your telescope to any distant target out in the view. Like it can be a building, a tree, or a street light, or whatever. So just pick a distant target, point your telescope to it. Make sure the tree or whatever target you want and is center up in the field of your camera or the eyepiece if you're using an eyepiece, not a camera. So center it up, and then what you need to do is check the finder. Like is the glowing circle or the red dot is pointing to the tree or whatever object or the street light that your telescope is currently pointing at. If not, then adjust the finder, not adjust the telescope, but adjust the finder using these knobs. Just turn those knobs until the glowing circle or the red dot is exactly pointing to where the telescope is pointing to. Now, when you're adjusting the finder scope, you want to lock everything off, like the tripods, the mount, because you don't want to be adjusting the Finderscope and your telescope. While doing this, your telescope is moving all over the place. It's not giving you any accuracy at all. So take the effort to do this, because you want it to be accurate, not just
Yeah, that's it. Will do.
you want it to be accurate. And yes, a calibrated Finderscope makes the difference between
Oh, why is nothing in the frame? It sucks.
to, oh boom, Andromeda is right there. Let's start imaging. So even if you're still learning the sky, learning the constellation lines, learning to star hop, a Finderscope helps you a lot. Like, even if you can read constellation lines, remember I said in the beginning that without a Finderscope, even if you understand constellation lines, even if you can read the sky, you still struggle without a Finderscope. That's because, okay, let's just take an example of Andromeda again. And when you ask someone how to find the Andromeda galaxy, and a lot of people will probably tell you that, oh, just aim between the stars Mirage and Mu Andromeda and you hit Andromeda galaxy every time. While that sounds easy, but if you're using a long focal length telescope, you have no chance of even knowing if you're actually pointing at those stars or not without a Finderscope. Because at that zoom level, right, constellation becomes just a scattered star pattern, and you can't find any familiar star pattern at all. So you can't really tell if those stars like Mirage or Mu Andromeda is in the frame or not, unless you have a way to visually point to the stars, like using a Finderscope. And at such zoom level, at such narrow field of view, even if you're like 1 degree off, it will mean that the Andromeda galaxy is completely out of the field of view, and you get lost. So yeah, when you hear people saying just aim between the Mirage and Mu Andromeda, it only works if you're using a Finderscope or using a go-to mount. Because at 200 millimeters or beyond, I mean the focal length, your field of view is so tiny that unless you have a way to visually point first, you're just blindly guessing in the dark. I hope this video saves you from a lot of frustration when it comes to doing astrophotography. And speaking of which, there were a lot of ways that you can change your approach so that you can make astrophotography enjoyable. And if you want to know that, be sure to check out my video where I share with you the ways that you can make astrophotography a fun game.